Welcome back to Sip and Talk.
Hey, everyone. It's good to be back.
So we were just chatting before we started about those tariffs again. Feels like the Trump tariff talk is just always there, isn't it?
It really is. It's kind of a constant hum in the background of everything else happening globally. Makes you think, though.
Totally. It connects to the bigger picture, which is what we want to, dive into today. We're looking at China's espionage efforts worldwide. And with Trump being president in 2025, the whole international scene feels, well, extra complicated.
For sure. And these things, the trade stuff, the spying, they're not separate issues, are they? They often overlap in ways we don't always see immediately.
Exactly. So that's our mission for this deep dive, to really try and understand the scale of China's spying operations. What methods are they using? What are the implications? We're looking at recent intelligence reports, specific cases.
Yeah.
Trying to get beyond just the headlines.
Yeah, get a clearer picture. Okay, so where do we start? The cyber threat seems like a big one.
Right. U.S. intelligence keeps saying China is the #1 most active, most persistent cyber threat. And we're not talking small-time stuff here.
Definitely not. They're talking about major infiltration attempts. Government systems, private companies, even critical infrastructure things like water systems, the power grid. That's pretty serious potential disruption.
Yeah, that's concerning. But it's not only cyber, is it? They're still doing the classic spy stuff, too. Human intelligence.
Oh, absolutely. Cyber gets a lot of attention, but Beijing is definitely still heavily invested in traditional human spying. They've got this global network of agents doing surveillance, trying to influence things, and a really big focus is monitoring and sometimes intimidating Chinese nationals living abroad, especially dissidents here in the U.S.
And this whole operation seems to have gotten much bigger, much bolder since Xi Jinping came to power around 2012.
That's a consensus, yeah. Many analysts believe the espionage directed at the U.S. under Xi is probably the largest in history. Just the sheer scale, the scope of it, and frankly, the audacity sometimes.
Why the big push, do you think?
Well, part of the thinking might be that Xi sees China rising, moving to the center stage globally, and maybe perceives the West as, well, less decisive or strong-willed somehow. That could fuel a more assertive intelligence posture.
And who's running the show? It's this Mystery of State Security, the MSS.
That's the main agency, the MSS. It's believed to be, quite possibly, the largest and most active intelligence service in the world.
How big are we talking?
Some estimates put their employee numbers around 600,000, which is just huge.
600,000, wow.
Yeah. And while their #1 priority is domestic control, keeping the party in power within China, the U.S. is seen as the primary external target. That number, 600,000, it kind of reflects the strategy of embedding intelligence gathering everywhere.
What's the driving force behind that massive internal focus, though, and targeting Chinese people overseas?
A lot of it seems to stem from Xi Jinping's own. Maybe paranoia is too strong a word, but a deep concern about the Communist Party's survival. They look at what happened to the Soviet Union, right?
The collapse.
Exactly. So there's this intense focus on preventing any kind of internal dissent or external pressure that could lead to something similar. And they seem to believe revolutions or threats to stability can often start among diaspora communities abroad. Hence the intense monitoring overseas.
Okay, so that's the why. Let's get into the how. These secret police stations. That sounds completely wild, like operating on U.S. soil.
It does sound wild, but it happened. In 2022, the FBI uncovered one operating out of an office building in Manhattan's Chinatown right here in New York.
What were they supposedly doing?
On the surface, they offered administrative help to Chinese nationals, like renewing driver's licenses. But prosecutors say the real purpose was much darker, targeting, harassing, even trying to coerce dissidents living in the U.S. to return to China.
That's a major violation, isn't it? A foreign government running police operations here.
It's a fundamental violation of national sovereignty. You can't just set up shop and conduct law enforcement or intelligence activities in another country without permission. And people involved with that New York station were charged.
Right. Didn't 2 people get arrested?
Yes. 2 Chinese Americans were charged with acting as unregistered agents of a foreign government. And it points to a bigger pattern. The DOJ has prosecuted something like over 140 people in the last 5 years for various China-related felonies in the U.S., harassment, stalking, hacking, espionage. It's a wide range.
So it's not always James Bond types. It can be people embedded in the community. Like that case of Wang Shuzhou and the elderly historian. That was quite a story.
It really was. It shows the long game and the betrayal involved. Wang Shuzhou, 76 years old, came here in the 90s, built up trust in the New York dissident community over decades. People saw him as one of them.
But he was spying the whole time.
For nearly 20 years, apparently. secretly feeding information back to the MSS names, contact details, private conversations of activists, just a massive breach of trust.
Did he admit it?
No, he denied working for the Chinese government, claimed it was all a misunderstanding. But the federal prosecutors had evidence records of meetings with MSS handlers, flight tickets they provided, help they gave his family back in China.
And didn't the FBI pull some kind of undercover sting on him?
It did. Pretty classic move. An undercover FBI agent posed as an MSS officer in 2021 and actually helped Wang try to delete incriminating communications from his computer. That's pretty hard evidence to explain away.
So what was the defense? His lawyer still tried to argue he did nothing illegal.
Yeah, the defense admitted he had contact with Chinese officials, but argued he didn't break U.S. law. They tried to paint him as a scapegoat, saying the info he shared was publicly available anyway, and the FBI only went after him when they failed to recruit him themselves.
But that doesn't line up with other testimony, like from Anna Young Chung, who said her private info was found with him.
Exactly. Her testimony was powerful. She talked about the fear and sleepless nights knowing her personal details were in his hands, potentially shared with the Chinese government. It showed the real-world impact.
And that's the goal, right? To make people scared to speak out, even here.
Precisely. Silence, harass, intimidate, make activists feel unsafe, even in exile.
And then there's the case of Anna Kwok, the Hong Kong government, putting a bounty on her head.
That's terrifying.
It's a stark example of transnational repression. A HK $130,000 bounty. She lives in fear of being kidnapped and sent back, facing potentially life imprisonment. Her family in Hong Kong has faced harassment, arrests. It's intense pressure. She's had to seek political asylum here.
Just awful. What happened to Wang Shujin, the historian spy, in the end?
He was convicted, but due to his age and health problems, he received 3 years of supervised release instead of prison time. The judge still stressed the seriousness of his actions, though.
So he didn't do hard time.
No. Some analysts suggest the MSS might have viewed him as somewhat disposable, willing to sacrifice him to protect perhaps more valuable assets, which also shows that human intelligence, getting people on the inside, is still incredibly important to them.
It's not just about dissidents either. There's that former CIA officer, Alexander Ma. Right, Alexander Yukching Ma, convicted of spying for China, providing classified national defense info for like $50,000 over years. It shows their efforts to penetrate U.S. intelligence itself, playing the long game.
And Operation Fox Hunt. That sounded like it was about catching corrupt officials, but it was used against dissidents, too.
Officially, Fox Hunt targeted fugitives accused of corruption who fled China. But the FBI found evidence it was being used as cover to locate, harass, and coerce dissidents living in the U.S. to return. Again, to violating sovereignty, leading to FBI arrests here.
And those police stations weren't a one-off, right? There were others charged related to the NYC one.
Yes, Chen Jinping and Lu Jianwang were charged specifically with operating that secret police station in Manhattan for China's Ministry of Public Security, conducting surveillance and harassment under that guise of providing community services.
And we also hear about things like the 1,000 Talents program. That's more about intellectual property, right?
Yeah.
Stealing research.
Yeah, the 1,000 Talents program has been linked to concerns about intellectual property theft and espionage within academia and research institutions. Cases like Charles Lieber at Harvard or Zhendong Chang at Texas A&M involved charges related to concealing ties to the program and improperly sharing sensitive research funded by the U.S. government. It exploits open academic collaboration.
So this is clearly not just happening in the U.S. You mentioned a global network earlier.
Absolutely global. The UK's MI5 and the FBI even issued a rare joint public warning about China being the biggest long-term threat to both countries' economic and national security. They cited a massive increase in investigations into Chinese espionage, cyber theft, interference.
And they found police stations there, too. And in Canada.
Yes, secret police stations were uncovered in the UK. Canada has been investigating alleged stations in places like Montreal. Intelligence reports suggest these operations might be in something like 53 countries, with over 100 locations worldwide.
53 countries. Wow. Europe's seeing this, too.
Definitely. There was a case in Norway where a man was arrested for allegedly collecting intelligence for China. France apparently expelled suspected MSS agents who were trying to coerce dissidents there. It's happening across the continent.
And even targeting key U.S. allies in Asia, like South Korea.
Yeah, that's a significant development. Reports surfaced of attempts to compromise South Korean military intelligence, specifically seeking info on the THAAD missile defense system, potentially U.S. nuclear plans, and intelligence related to U.S. forces stationed there. Arrests were made. It shows an expansion of their focus.
It feels like they're trying to reach everywhere, target anyone who opposes them. You mentioned transnational repression earlier.
Right, and the methods can be quite chilling. Look at the case of Alyssa Liu, the U.S. Olympic figure skater, and her father, Arthur Liu, a known activist. An individual allegedly posing as an Olympic official, but suspected of being linked to Chinese intelligence, tried to get their passport info. It's about intimidation and control.
Targeting athletes. Activists like Xiang Yan from Tiananmen Square.
Exactly. And the information Wang Shujin provided was reportedly used to crack down on democracy advocates back in Hong Kong, including a prominent lawyer and politician. It shows the direct link between spying abroad and repression at home.
And the bounties, the threats, arresting family members like with Anna Kwak. It's a clear pattern.
It is. It's designed to instill fear, to silence critics globally, to make them feel like nowhere is safe.
And they're using everything in their toolkit, cyber and human spies working together.
That integration is key. We see constant warnings about China's cyber espionage capabilities, indictments of hackers targeting companies, universities, think tanks worldwide. But they combine that with traditional methods. There was the case of Ji Chao-kan, recruited as a student in the U.S., later joined the Army Reserves, all while allegedly collecting info on potential recruits, scientists, engineers for the MSS.
So pulling it all together, what's the main motivation behind this massive global effort, beyond just geopolitical competition?
Well, remember that huge MSS size. Their primary focus, according to some experts like James Lewis, is actually domestic stability. Then comes the U.S. They intensely target groups perceived as threats to CCP rule, the so-called five poisons: Tibetan activists, Uyghur activists, Falun Gong practitioners, Taiwan independence supporters, and Chinese democracy advocates.
So Xi Jinping really fears these overseas movements could spark trouble back home.
That appears to be a core concern, that democracy movements abroad could somehow ignite dissent within China. And they use organizations like the United Front Work Department to try and influence overseas Chinese communities, elites, and spread narratives favorable to Beijing. Some reports claim there might be like 600 CCP-linked groups in the U.S. alone working towards these goals.
And actions like the secret police stations or Operation Fox Hunt just blatantly disregard other countries' laws.
Completely. They bypass established international legal cooperation channels. It's a direct challenge to national sovereignty, as FBI Director Wray and others have repeatedly emphasized. It fundamentally undermines the norms that govern how countries interact.
So wrapping this up, it's clear China's espionage is incredibly multifaceted: cyber, human agents, repression, and it's happening all over the world.
That's the key takeaway. It's a persistent, sophisticated global campaign combining high-tech and traditional methods. It reaches from North America to Europe to Asia, posing significant challenges to security and sovereignty.
And the impact on individuals, especially activists trying to exercise free speech, is profound and deeply concerning.
Absolutely. The human cost is significant.
So for you listening, this isn't just abstract geopolitics. It affects real people, potentially impacts our own infrastructure and institutions. It really makes you think about, well, the nature of sovereignty in this interconnected age and the ongoing need for vigilance when it comes to protecting democratic freedoms.
Definitely something to keep in mind.
And if you want to keep exploring these kinds of complex global issues with us, please do subscribe to the Sip&Talk podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, maybe also check out our old buddy Micky's YouTube channel while you're at it. Always good for a unique perspective.
Yeah, go see what Micky's up to. All right, thanks everyone for tuning into this deep dive.
See you next time.